As we enter this Christmas season, we are also nearing the end of 2021. What will the next year hold, and what will we be doing about it? On today's program, you'll discover how you can help impact America with an exciting and ambitious new project. And we will take a closer look at the one who is the reason for this Christmas season. We begin with a preview of this ministry's plans for 2022. And I'm joined in the studio by John Rabe, our Director of Creative Production. John, welcome.
Thank you, Frank. Always good to be with you.
It is good to have you here. There's so much going on in the world around us, and so much has happened in the last year, but we all seem to have a sense of 2022 being a year of great importance and cultural moment. Do you see that as well?
Absolutely. Of course, we know that it's going to be a midterm election and a rather important one. And we also, I think, Frank, just see the way the cultural tides have been going, and we all recognize that we are at a pivotal point in American history. And that's why I am excited about what the ministry has planned for 2022. And this is really at your direction and at the direction of our board of directors. But we are planning an ambitious slate of new documentaries specials that we are going to be producing throughout 2022 that we really see as gospel-focused and culture-changing, culture-impacting documentary specials that we are uniquely equipped and positioned to be able to provide to the public. We've done a number of these throughout the years, and we plan to do numerous of them in 2022. And it's really an ambitious plan that we're embarking upon to put together these documentaries.
Yes, it is. We have, as you said, we have been producing important documentary exposés over the years, and part of our rationale for doing so is the best way to overcome error is to apply truth to the process. And now more than ever before, truth is under duress. Truth is not even acknowledged as a reality that can be apprehended by some people. What are some of the topics that we're going to be applying biblical truth to in 2022?
We are planning a number of specials for 2022. We're going to be doing a documentary special dealing with really cultural Marxism and the tentacles that it is extending into so many areas of our society, but also providing hope for how people can go after this. We've seen a little glimpse of that in the state of Virginia in November of 2021 when people reacted to critical race theory and cultural Marxism in their schools and took the state back. Well, that provides us a little bit of hope for what can happen in the nation in the future. We're also going to be producing a new version of a special that we did many years ago called Darwin's Deadly Legacy that looks at the impact of Darwinian theory on the world and the incredible toll that it has taken in terms of freedom, in terms of human life, and in terms of human dignity. And we are planning, Frank, and I'm very excited about this, 2 documentary specials dealing with the person and work of Jesus Christ. In the early 2000s, the most important, most successful documentaries that this ministry ever made were 2 programs called Who Is This Jesus? And What If Jesus Had Never Been Born? Who Is This Jesus? Dealt with the person of Jesus Christ and the gospel accounts, their accuracy, the resurrection of Jesus and how he saves us. And What If Jesus Had Never Been Born? Dealt with the effect that he had on the world and everything from education to science to government and so many other areas, so many areas that are not known about now. We are excited to say that we are going to be remaking those 2 specials in 2022 fashion, full HD, full 4K, ready to stand the test of the next 20 years. These will be documentaries that will not only inform and edify, but will impact the culture and that we'll be able to share with the next generation of young people who need to know these truths.
Well, John, let's take a look at some of these plans that we're talking about that will unfold in 2022.
I travel all over the country. I've been in 48 states in the last couple of years, probably 16 states in the last few months. And what I do when I'm there is I just meet with regular people. And that's what gives me hope. These are God's people. They're faithful people. They're patriotic people. They love their country and they're willing to invest in the future of their country.
We're in desperate need of good news, and Jesus offers that good news.
Paul says in 2 Timothy 3:12, all those who desire to live a godly life in Christ Jesus shall be persecuted. And in that same passage, he tells us that we set apart Christ as Lord, always being ready to give an answer to anyone who asks us for the reason for the hope that is in us.
There are many people who think, oh, Jesus is the product of messianic fever. The disciples were looking for a Messiah and they chose Jesus and they made him into one. That is an impossible scenario. The reason they ended up believing that he was God was because the evidence was so powerful and so compelling.
The evidence of history shows us that the early church absolutely believed that the resurrection was historical, an event that changed the world. The early biblical testimony shows us that one person after another said, we saw the living Christ. And perhaps the crescendo is when there's the claim that 500 people saw him at once. An amazing accomplishment of eyewitness accounts from all the gospel testimonies.
What Darwin did is give people license to do whatever they wanted to do because we came up through the animal world.
Well, Darwin gave him a worldview, and it was based on natural selection. It basically said the stronger shall survive.
If you come to the table presupposing there's not a God, we weren't created, we just evolved by accident, happenstance, that also is going to have great implication for what you believe about your own value as a human being.
It's not just an idea of ape-like creatures supposedly changing into people. It's much more than that. It's really a whole way of thinking. It's really a philosophy of life. Actually, I would say it's really a religion to explain life without God.
Social justice is based on critical race theory, which basically says that race is a means simply for oppression. It is based on a Marxist notion.
You're dealing with this neo-Marxist ideology that views the world through the lens of oppressors and the oppressed. And that critical refers to what you do when you identify the sources of the oppression and try to apply these theories in order to bring about a revolutionary political change.
Young people today are told that if they are born, with a particular skin color, that America is such an oppressive country that they are a victim. And it's nothing but critical race theory.
There are those that really want us to keep focusing on race so that they can exploit whatever uncomfortableness that they can get out of that person so that they can further a political agenda. It is just that cut and dry.
The left has deployed a number of strategies to literally steal the vote. One thing is to allow millions of illegal immigrants into the country, not keep track of them, and then weaken the voting laws.
I think that the left has just been so disingenuous and quite frankly a little condescending when it comes to the ballot security debate.
Simple rules like voter ID, are being adopted, but also being resisted by left-leaning groups who are not in favor of a rules-based culture, but who in fact thrive off of chaos.
Studies have shown that after introduction of voter ID laws, there's no decrease in voter participation, particularly among minorities.
Jesus is the force that has created the modern world.
Jesus Christ is still admitted to be the most influential person that ever lived.
Many of the things that even the secular guy takes for granted would disappear if Christianity had never existed. If it wasn't for Christianity, our world would look very different.
When we look at the developed world versus the developing world, when we look at prosperity and freedom, there is a direct correlation between the advance of the gospel, particularly the Reformation gospel, and the advance of prosperity and freedom in the world.
Well, John, you and I both, I think, have the strong conviction that there's no one else out there doing this in the culture, applying biblical truth to the great moral, political, and cultural questions of our day, at least no one with a national broadcast platform.
It really is true, Frank. God has uniquely positioned D. James Kennedy Ministries to do this work, to be able to produce quality hour-long documentaries that will air in numerous venues, and to also produce a weekly television program that applies the biblical worldview to every area of life. There's just nobody who's doing that conglomeration of issues the way that God has enabled us to. And we live in a very visual culture, as you know, Frank. However powerful visual media was 20 or 30 years ago, it's that much more powerful now, especially when you extend it into social media and YouTube and so forth. We plan to put this material out on every possible avenue. As Dr. Kennedy once said, in ways yet undreamed of, those new communications platforms, we're going to put it out there everywhere. It really is a unique opportunity to impact our nation for Jesus Christ.
There was a time in the last generation where you could syndicate a television program or even a documentary special and reach a broad audience just by going to the major networks. These days, in order to reach a broad audience, the distribution's got to be a lot wider, and it's a lot more expensive than it ever was before. And so we've created our Producers Guild to invite people to join us in this effort, because it is going to be incredibly expensive, and we will not do these things if they're not done with excellence, and if we're not comfortable that the biblical truths we proclaim can make a difference in the culture around us.
That's exactly right, Frank. We have a very lean staff. There are no wasted efforts here. There is no overlap, but it takes time and money and personnel to put together television programs of excellence and of high quality, especially those that will stand the test of time. And so we need help to be able to do that, especially in an era when more and more broadcast entities are closing their doors to ministries like ours, saying, no, you can't talk about those issues. We had a major national network tell us that we couldn't air a program that said that George Washington was a Christian. That's the atmosphere that we exist in now, and so it's more important than ever that God's people come alongside and help fund efforts like these so that we can still get the truth out there when the gatekeepers are trying to keep the gates locked.
And John, we've been blessed with faithful supporters that have enabled this ministry to do its work for 47 years.
Amen.
And we're trying to ratchet that work up to a whole new level of distribution and engagement, and thankful for the people that have helped us come here.
Amen. And it requires adding staff, and it requires adding equipment, it requires adding travel and all sorts of other resources. We can't do that on our own. We need the help of our faithful supporters to do that. And thankfully, whenever we have asked, they have always stepped up for us.
Well, John, thanks for being here. I'm thankful to the Lord for your leadership of our creative production team, a great group of producers and editors and production staff. It's a joy to work with you. Excited about the year ahead. I know you are as well.
I am. Thank you, Frank. It is truly an honor to be a part of this ministry and work with you and our great team here.